Fill your cart at WagerTalk and Sports Memo and save 30% using coupon code SAVE30. Valid 3 days only, Wednesday, September 22nd through Friday, September 24th. Save over $10 on a 5% play. Save over $35 on a 7-day all-access package. Save over $600 on a full year of all-access and get in on every sport. Or load your cart with all of the above and save over $645. Remember, you can only use one coupon at WagerTalk and one coupon at Sports Memo per customer between now and Friday at midnight. So make sure to load your cart full and maximize your 30% savings.
All right, guys, welcome in here. Happy Thursday to you. Can't believe it already. September the 23rd. We got some college football on our mind as we look to break down a couple of games for you here over the next 28 and a half minutes or so. And what fun. We get to do it with three of the absolute best and most profitable college football handicappers at WagerTalk. Welcome in the gentleman, Mr. Tony Mejia at the top spot. And there he is in the middle, the godfather himself, Teddy Covers, and, of course, the legendary Dave Cokin in the house here, guys. Looking to break down these four games for you. And, of course, we'll get to LSU, Mississippi State to start. But, Tony Mejia, welcome back, my friend. How's your week been? And what do you got going on at WagerTalk.com right now?
Well, today's a very busy day. We still have two soccer plays going off tonight. Ooh. And a bunch going on in Europe, including one that I'm watching right below me right here out of Belgium. So lots of stuff there. Baseball, I've been heating up on the diamond, so that's great as the playoffs approach. We're down to the nitty-gritty with about 10 games left for everybody. And obviously, today is the beginning of football week. So week 3 in the NFL, week 4 in college, and we're going to get locked and loaded and have lots of plays throughout the weekend, including 2 tonight in both NFL and college.
All right, we got them ready to go here. A lot going on there for Mr. Mejia, and as is, of course, Teddy Covers. You can catch him at sportsmemo.com as well as wagertalk.com. And Teddy, continuing to roll, my friend. What's going on with you? What's new?
Yeah, it's been a good week. Certainly the baseball has been great this week. I've cashed 4 tickets and 3 of them at a nice dog price with 4 bets. So I'll take that any day of the week when you cash them all in MLB. The NFL and college week. My NFL's locked and loaded. My college, I'm still in the process of putting it up. I'll be posted either later today or first thing tomorrow morning. So you can get all those plays right now at WagerTalk and or sportsmemo.com.
Can't wait. And, of course, Dave Cokin continuing to roll here, guys. College football across the board continues to be the most profitable college football handicapper at WagerTalk here for, I don't know, the better part of 7 decades, I think. No, I'm only kidding. It was somewhere along those lines. But 3, Dave, I understand. 1, 2, 3, 3 best bets you've got ready to go. Is that a $29 special I'm seeing, too? That's amazing.
It is. Not the amazing part, but it is a 3-game package of best bets. I like the card this weekend, not in terms of quantity, but certainly in terms of quality. I'm on 5 games. One's a free play that I have posted. You can follow me on Twitter and spot that somewhere in my timeline at Dave Cokin, or you can just go to my homepage at WagerTalk, which is wt.buzz/DC. One game was just all access players only, and the other 3 are the 3 best bets, and they're tied together in one package for $29. I expect to do well with these 3 games, so go get them. And as for tonight, basically on the sidelines, I'm not playing the NFL game, and actually won't have none of my college games until Saturday. But I will be posting my college leans at some point, either later today or tomorrow, on the Twitter timeline at Dave Cokin. Those went 11-1 last week. Yeah. They weren't plays. I want to make that clear. I wish they were because my actual plays didn't do that well. But the leans are basically stuff on my numbers that didn't make the card for some reason or another. They will all be posted in one tweet. So, check it out. If they match up with something you guys like, might want to take advantage of it. If it's something opposite of what you like, well, don't let me talk you off it, but it might be worth looking into why you might want to pass a game like that. Anyway, enough.
That was a hell of a card last week, too, guys. But we're going to start off with our card here today. And we're looking LSU, Mississippi State here. And boy, oh boy, there might be 7,000 passes thrown in this game here, Tony Mejia. I'm coming to you first. What are you anticipating here? LSU taking on Mississippi State in this matchup.
Yeah, definitely not a lot of runs, Joe. That's what I'm definitely not anticipating. Mississippi State leads the nation in pass frequency. LSU's in the top 10. Mississippi State obviously embarrassed LSU last season with 623 passing yards by KJ Costello, the Stanford transfer, who's no longer there. But State won last year, 44-34. It was part of LSU's embarrassing season, despite the fact they have the best corner in the college game. But Orgeron called it an embarrassing loss, and they're going to look to rectify things and stop Mike Leach's air raid attack this time around. I think we'll see points, and it'll be a high scoring game. But I don't really trust this kid Max Johnson that LSU has. He threw. I don't know if you remember. He threw that no look pass against UCLA, the worst pass I've ever seen anybody on any level throw. So if I'm leaning on a side, just based on that alone, I'll lean Mississippi State. But my probable play on this, if it makes my card or not, I'm not sure, but it will be on the total going over.
All right. Teddy, we're looking at that score there back on just about a year ago there. A lot of points in that matchup. What do you think we're going to see here in this matchup?
So when you talk about that first meeting last year between Leach and Orgeron, all right, let's not forget the circumstance. It was week 1 of the season. It was off a limited training camp and all kinds of protocols and nobody was ready. So to look at last year's game and say, oh, Mississippi State, Leach lit them up. The Tigers defense can't handle the Bulldogs. I would tap my foot on the brakes with that thought process. I think last year's game is going to stand at a one-off. And obviously, you don't want to look at Mississippi State from maybe the Mullen era against LSU, but it's not like the Bulldogs' offense year in, year out has been able to put up points in bunches on that LSU defense. And, of course, the country saw LSU week 1. They weren't ready. They weren't ready week 1 last year either. The game against UCLA was pretty ugly. But in theory, Mike Leach's teams, and there was a lot of thoughts expressed about this when he first took the Mississippi State job. In theory, this offense isn't supposed to work against good secondaries. All right, the teams that tackle well and cover well and have speed on the outside are supposed to be able to contain Mississippi State's offense. Didn't work for LSU last year. I would be surprised if it works a little bit better this time around. I don't want the home dog in this one, especially now that we've lost the key number of 3. It's not a game I'm likely to get involved with, but if I was, it moves towards pick'em, maybe I will. But it's LSU or pass for this bet.
All right, LSU will pass for Teddy. And Dave, should be a very interesting game here, to say the least. If you like points, how are you looking at this game?
Well, I power rated the game at LSU minus 1.5. So I think it's a game that goes to the wire. Mississippi State, typical Mike Leach, go out there and get a great win and follow it up by screwing up, which they did last week as they lost a game they should have won against Memphis. But that's Mike Leach, as he remains one of the more overrated but entertaining college football coaches. I don't know how good a matchup this is for LSU. They are just not having success running the football. And Mississippi State, one thing they do well defensively is defend the run. The flip side of it is LSU looks to be very good against the run, but the Bulldogs don't care about that because if Mike Leach could run 80 plays and they were all passes, he'd probably be happy with that. So I don't know that it's a great matchup for LSU. Mississippi State, look, I mean, they shouldn't have beaten Louisiana Tech, but they did. They were good against NC State. They should have beaten Memphis, but they didn't. So their record is where it should be, although kind of in weird fashion. LSU has just not been impressive. I don't think UCLA is that good. Yeah, they had a bit of an excuse with the hurricane messing with their preparation for that long trip west. But I don't think the Bruins are that good, and I think that's kind of not much of a loss for LSU. They weren't great against Central Michigan. It's a MAC team, and McNeese was their other game, and that's an FCS team. I'm just not sold on this team. And I thought there was going to be a lot of improvement. I thought last year, they'd lost everybody to the NFL out of the championship team, and a lot of issues that weren't of their own doing. Thought they'd get it back together. I haven't seen it. I think that given the matchup and the fact that my power rating actually does give a tiny bit of value to the Bulldogs, it's not going to be on my card, but it is on my lean list, and I would lean to Mississippi State.
All right, leaning Mississippi State in a tight one, guys. We're going to move on to the next one. Let's take a look. Iowa State taking on Baylor. Sevens pretty much across the board, somewhere around the 47 and a half mark for a total. And Teddy, talking about a year ago, that was 38-31, I think, is a 14-point dog there. So what do you think we're going to see here? Is Baylor that good? Is Iowa State overrated? How are you looking at it?
So I found a quote, and I thought a meaningful quote from Dave Aranda last week after Baylor blew out Kansas. Their second straight blowout win, again, lesser foes, laying big points in both those games, but both times winning relatively easily. And the quote from Aranda saying, "We finally established our identity. We are a team that wants to run the football." And Aranda's been trying to establish an identity for Baylor basically since he got there. Now he thinks he's got one running the football. Is that going to work against Iowa State's defense? I came into the season looking at Iowa State, the Cyclones, as an overvalued commodity. Not a team that's going to win the games by margin, a team that's very highly power rated, but not a team that's going to be able to put up points in bunches on a consistent basis. And obviously the first 2 weeks, if you bet against Iowa State, you made money. They didn't sniff a point spread cover in either ballgame. But last week, they faced a team that, couldn't run and couldn't stop the run. And it wasn't a non-competitive game against UNLV. Not comparing Baylor to UNLV, but if Baylor can't run the football against Iowa State, and I'm not convinced they can. I'm not convinced anyone's going to run the football well against Iowa State this season. I don't know what the Bears are going to do to score points in this ball game. So Iowa State, not explosive offensively. And this feels kind of like a defensive scrum. I think the under might be the best bet of all in this one. But if I'm playing, I'm laying. I don't want the dog in this one.
Dave, you like the Bears as a home dog in this one? I mean, although Texas State, Texas Southern, Kansas probably not moving the needle for a lot of folks.
No, I don't. I don't like the matchup for Baylor in terms of their offense. They want to run the ball. I mean, Teddy just explained that. And if you look at their stats, they are running it a lot. And that's partially because that's what the coach wants to do. And it's partially because that's all they really are able to do. Bohannon, he's calling him an average college quarterback would be a compliment. Okay, he's just not a real high-level college QB. So they have to be vanilla on offense and hope they're able to establish something on the ground. And as Teddy also mentioned, Iowa State's really good against the run. There have been some flaws in this Iowa State team so far. They did shake off some of the frustration last week, though. I know it's like, okay, what they were supposed to do against UNLV. It still had to feel good for the Cyclones after a passive performance against Northern Iowa and the loss in a game they probably could have won against Iowa. So they needed a spirit booster last week, and they got one. Their fans came out here in pretty good numbers. It was almost a home game for them at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. And I think they leave feeling good about themselves. Their real strength, by the way, they can get to the quarterback. So if they can hold Baylor on first and second downs, which I think they can do, and Baylor's forced to go to the air, the pass rush could be very effective. Now, Baylor's only given up 1 sack so far, but they didn't play anybody. And they weren't in situations where they had to throw the ball. They weren't seeing a lot of third and longs. So this is a game I won't be playing because it's right on my number. I make Iowa State 7, and I think it's going to be in that range. But Iowa State should come out on top, and it's, to me, a favorable matchup for them. So if I had to play the game, I don't, and I'm not, but if I had to play it, I would also side with the Cyclones.
All right, good stuff. And Tony, Baylor 12-4 against the number as an underdog here over the last 16. Can I interest you in taking the points here with the home dog?
You cannot. I think that what we've seen out of Baylor is the fact that they've played Texas State, Texas Southern, and Kansas. So you really can't take any of their numbers, to heart because they haven't done anything. They haven't played anybody. They lead the Big 12 in total offense, 449 yards per game. Whoop-de-doo. We'll see what they do against a really good defense. The Cyclones lead the nation in fewest yards allowed per game. They've only allowed 13.3 points. They gift wrapped the touchdown to Iowa with the Breece Hall fumble that was uncharacteristic. But that just goes to show you that the Hawkeyes defense has been lights out. And so this is the recovery period for the Cyclones coming off that tough loss. It was a game that they really wanted badly at home against the arch rival. So they took some frustrations out at UNLV. They should win this game by double digits. So I would definitely lay the points. And then they got Kansas next week before the bulk of the Big 12 schedule really hits. Breece Hall, he's only averaging 4 yards a carry. That's a concern. That kid is one of the most explosive backs in the entire country. So, that tells me their offensive line is having issues. Brock Purdy has looked mediocre when he's obviously not. He's one of the better quarterbacks in the nation. So it's get healthy time for Iowa State. And from that standpoint, I think you go on the road, you take advantage of a good defense, and you handle business by double digits, get back on track. That's what I'm looking for here. My lean would be to the under on the total. Iowa State has seen the under come in 8 consecutive games.
All right, good stuff there. Getting ready, of course, for a game a lot of people are going to be interested in here, and that is, guess who? They got problems. That being, Clemson taking on NC State. That's right. Yep, Clemson, NC State in this one. And, Dave, I'm going to come to you first because I don't know what to do with this Clemson team. I really have no clue. They have not covered. They have not looked good. That Georgia Tech game was an anomaly. Are you worried about Clemson? Could you even look at NC State in this one?
Well, I think you got to look at the dog. NC State's had this game circled. This is their big game. And Clemson's offense isn't working. Lagalele he hasn't been good. I didn't expect him to be Trevor Lawrence. I don't think anybody did. But I think it's fair to say he's been a disappointment so far. He just has not looked to be in command out there. I didn't think that would happen. I thought, he got enough experience when Lawrence was down last year so that it would be, even with a decline, certainly in output, a fairly seamless transition. But that has not been the case. And Swinney's got to be worried about his team's lack of offense so far. And I don't know that it's going to get much better here. NC State's a pretty good defensive football team. Talked about them before the season started. And my comment on NC State was, this is one time where I don't think you have to worry about the defense. If there are worries at NC State, it might be on the offense. I'm not a big Leary guy. I know he came out of New Jersey with, guns blare or whatever. I'm looking for the right combination of words and I can't find it. But he was supposed to be a hot shot, and he's okay. That's about it. He gets a little errant at times with his tosses. I think NC State and their fans thought we're getting an NFL prospect here, and I don't think at this point Leary has established that he's an NFL prospect. He's not terrible by any means, but he makes mistakes, and he's got a good arm, but it's not the cannon that it was described as being coming out of high school in New Jersey. So what I think you've got is an NC State offense that at this point has some question marks. They got a bunch of points against South Florida, but who cares? They didn't do much against Mississippi State, that's for sure. And they're not going to do much against Clemson because if there are worries about the Clemson offense, there sure aren't any worries about their defense. It is elite. It's one of the best defensive units in the country. And with Clemson's problems on offense, I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I think it's going to be a battle of field position. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of chances taken by either team. I think they're both going to try and win with defense. My number on the game, I think, is a little off because Clemson has been worse than I thought they would be. And I still made them 10 here, but they might not be quite that, off the eye test, it's probably closer to 7. So I think there's a little value on NC State. I think there's a little value on the under. Not going to be betting it, but if you're looking for a same game type of deal where got a pretty good chance to split and maybe go 2-0. I don't think you go 0-2. NC State plus the points and the under.
All right, Tony Mejia. So let me try it again. Can I interest you in a home dog here in this one at all? Would you take the 10 points?
I am all about taking the 10 points with NC State. haven't beaten Clemson since 2011. So let's put that out there. They've had their chances. And this particular NC State team, I really like them on paper coming into the season. They handled business against South Florida and then just collectively no-showed in Starkville against Mississippi State. They couldn't get the running game going. I think that was the biggest issue. Bam Knight is a guy that Devin Leary relies upon to kind of soften up the defenses so he can find Emeka Emezi and the other receivers out on the edge. And those guys, can make plays. I think they'll make plays in this game against a really sound Clemson defense. And that's where your upset potential lies. They've got to move the football because you figure they're going to be able to hang with DJ Uiagalelei and the Clemson offense, who has not found much traction whatsoever. Obviously, the 14 points against Georgia Tech following up, being manhandled by Georgia, and this is their first true road game. They're switching to a brand new tailback, Will Shipley, whose parents are NC State alums. I found that interesting. Will now take over. There's issues on that Clemson offensive line that aren't going to be solved overnight. And again, we've now seen it twice. If you watch the Georgia Tech game, they got pushed around up front. Everybody's eyes were on the Georgia game, and they were absolutely manhandled. And from that standpoint, it wasn't even Uiagalelei's fault because he just had no time to throw, and they just came at him in waves. This is a great opportunity for NC State. Getting 10 points, I think they'll be in the game late with a chance to win it, so I'll take those.
Teddy, what do you think? Some people might think this is a good opportunity to buy low on a Clemson team that has dominated North Carolina State over the years here. What do you think we're looking at?
So Clemson's problem is not at the quarterback position. I watched the whole game against Georgia Tech last week. Even kept it on through the 2-hour delay. They kept switching channels on it. It was on, it was on ABC, and then it was on ESPN News, and then it was on the Deuce, and it was like, and I wanted to watch that whole game. I was searching around. Where did you put it now? Along with the other games that were on. But the point is this: it was like, it was the rain delay. It wasn't the rain delay. All right, they were dead from the get-go in that game. All right, there was no. It's not Uiagalelei. It's everything else with that offense. The offensive line is problematic. It's not a good offensive line. And when you think about how much skill position talent Clemson has lost to the NFL over the last 3 or 4 years, we assume they reloaded. I was watching receivers that couldn't get open against Georgia Tech defenders again and again. So not only did he have no time to throw, but he had no open receivers to throw to. And that offense hasn't worked. Really hard for me to lay double digits on the road with that. All that said, I'm not going to forget what I saw in the NC State Mississippi State game, which is NC State took a punch and couldn't punch back and turtled on the road. They fumbled the ball. They turned the ball over deep in the opponent's territory, blew a scoring chance, gave up a touchdown, and it was over. Leary got frustrated. You heard Cokin talking about it a minute ago. He's like, yeah, this QB, yes and no. I'm not convinced NC State can move the football here at all. All right. Lean under probably before I got involved with laying doubles on the side for Clemson, because this has all the makings of a 17-3 or a 10-7 type of ball game. First 1 to 20 wins.
It's going to be a little less scoring than some might anticipate in this game here, guys. Clemson, North Carolina State. And that's going to lead us into the final game we're going to talk about here, 3:30. And boy, this is going to be fun. How about Rutgers, the Scarlet Knights, taking on Michigan and the Wolverines, who like to run the ball. 18.5 is an open, 53 is a total. 3:30 in the afternoon. Teddy, I'm going to come right back to you on here, Michigan man. I want to know how good you think this Michigan team might be this year, because we're getting smirks out of Harbaugh that we have not gotten in a long, long time here. How good is this team?
They're good enough to go into Ohio State undefeated if everything goes right. But nothing matters for the Michigan Wolverines except for beating Ohio State. That is a competitive series that all of a sudden the last decade is no longer competitive. And that's what the Wolverine season is. So everything between here and there is prelude for the big game in November. That said, when you're talking about early in the season and Big Ten openers and Wolverines, and Rutgers gave them a battle last year. Game went into overtime. Wild affair. And the Scarlet Knights 3-0 against the spread to open this season. That's a good defensive ball club. Offensively, they're very limited. Very limited. We saw that the Syracuse game stood out to me, where Rutgers, that offense was not going to move the ball up and down the field. And I wonder how they're going to score against the Wolverines. All that said, Schiano's defense is real. And again, last year's game, a wild shootout. I'm anticipating the exact opposite this time around. Of all 4 games we talk about today, there are 4 unders that I wouldn't bet any of these games over, and this one might well be the strongest of the bunch. I am not looking for points in bunches in this one. I expect a low-scoring defensive scrub.
All right. Well, listen, they've been good there, Tony Mejia, this Rutgers squad. Schiano putting his fingerprint on this program. They can play some defense. Do they have enough offense, though, to go in and beat Michigan?
Yeah, this isn't our older brother's Rutgers team that had, God rest his soul, James Gandolfini, through the roof and recruiting at the height of the Sopranos. But it is a watchable squad. So Schiano's definitely got them on the right track. Teddy mentioned last year's game. They were up 17-0 in Piscataway on Michigan, and let that lead fumbled away, and ultimately they lost in triple overtime, 48-42. So they're going to come into Ann Arbor thinking that they can play with Michigan. Wolverines haven't done a lot wonderfully under Jim Harbaugh, but they are 13-2 in Big Ten openers. Blake Corum is a game breaker at the running back position. He leads the nation with 8 touchdowns, 7 on the ground. And I think his big plays will end up making the difference in what I'll agree with Teddy. Will end up being a lower scoring game than expected. I think McNamara is more of a game manager for Michigan, and they trust their defense. Very similar to what they were able to do at home on a Saturday night a few weeks back against Washington, where you control the game at the line of scrimmage and run the ball down Rutgers' throats. 20 probably a little too much for me, but I wouldn't take the points either with Rutgers. I really like that underplay.
So it is a lot of points there, Dave. Have you been impressed with these two teams thus far through 3 games?
I can't say yes or no on Rutgers because they've played garbage. Temple, Syracuse, and Delaware. They played well, but they haven't played anybody. And the quarterback he's not much. If you're power rating on a 1 to 10 scale, he's maybe a 4. Michigan, this is the tricky one. Is how good is Michigan? I'm starting to think I should throw out last year completely and go back to where I had them rated in 2019, because my power rating on Michigan was, quite frankly, largely based on what they did last year, and they were terrible last year. Now, I had them pegged on my power ratings. I think I had them 6th in the Big Ten coming into this season. They're clearly better than that. Talked about the Baylor coach talking about carving out an identity for his team. Michigan's got one. They can run the ball. They got 2 really good backs. Tony mentioned one of them. Let's not leave Hopkins off the list. That kid's good. So even with a serviceable quarterback, you got an offensive line that is opening big holes. And I've been particularly, look, they've beaten good teams. Not Northern Illinois, forget them. But Western Michigan might well be the best team in the MAC. I said that before the season started when we did the MAC preview, and they didn't do me badly last week, and a good performance as they beat Pittsburgh. And Washington, now granted, Washington had the wide receiver cluster injuries at that time. when they played him a couple weeks ago. But this Washington team is really good up front on both sides of the ball. And Michigan beat them at the line of scrimmage. If they played him to a standstill, I'd be impressed. They actually beat him in that game, I thought. By the way, watch out for Washington. They're getting healthy again, and that team could take off in the Pac-12. But as for Michigan, I think I'm clearly too low on their number. So I made the game 16.5 in my power ratings, but a lot of that's still 2020. By next week, we'll have 4 games in, and it'll be almost all of this year. And I think you'll see Michigan bump up a little quicker than most teams do in my power ratings because I won't be using any of last year's stuff by next week. I like the way this team's going, and the interesting thing is they're still kind of under the radar because Teddy hit it at the top. Well, it's all about Ohio State. But I got to tell you something. Michigan is playing playoff level football right now. They've been the best, in my opinion. They've been the most impressive team we've seen so far in the Big Ten. They're playing better than Ohio State at this point. That game's a ways down the road. Michigan avoids missteps. That could be the biggest Michigan-Ohio State game in a long, long time when they get together. I think Michigan will win this game easily.
Already over 1,000 yards rushing here. You mentioned Corum, 8.5 yards per carry. Meanwhile, Haskins, almost 6 yards per carry.
I said Hopkins.
Yeah, it did. But, I mean, that's 6 yards a carry at all this time. I mean, that's just absurd. These guys are running down. They're running over people. So, interesting game. 18.5 is what it opened up at, guys. Michigan, 3:30 p.m. on Saturday, taking on Rutgers. All right, so we got 4 games across the board we went over. I will ask and start with you, Tony Mejia, if there is one of these games that you might like a little bit more than the other.
I mean, they're running neck and neck because I think I'm going to stick my neck out and take the points with NC State and hope for the outright upset. But out of the 4, I think I like Iowa State best. Baylor just hasn't played anybody. Texas State, Texas Southern, Kansas, and now you're going up against a team that finally gained some traction against UNLV and is looking to keep it going. And I think he's not injured, so Breece Hall will, break off a 20, 40-yard run and get that yards per carry number up to where we expected it to be. And I think they'll take out Baylor in Waco by double digits. So give me Iowa State laying the points. All
right, make sure you guys visit Tony Mejia, of course, WagerTalk.com. And Teddy, I'll come to you. I'm just going to say, under? Is there an under somewhere on the board you liked a little bit more than the other in these games?
Sure. Let's talk Rutgers team total under, because I'm seeing there's 16.5s out there, as high as 16.5, 14.5 is the prevailing number. I don't think Rutgers gets above 2 touchdowns in this ball game against that Michigan defense. Cokin talked about it a moment ago. I mean, from a quarterbacking standpoint, the Scarlet Knights, he gave them a 4 on a 1 to 10 scale. I might go under the 4. It's dicey QB. And, my biggest concern about the full game under is that Harbaugh might run it up and bully it. But then again, they have Wisconsin next week, so I wouldn't be surprised if he shuts it down after halftime. But bottom line, Rutgers team total under might be the best way to look for this one.
All right, love it. And guys, don't forget, Teddy's best bets will be up and ready to rock and roll, not only at WagerTalk, but also at sportsmemo.com. And Dave, of these 4, is there one you leaning towards a little bit more than the others?
Yeah, I think Mississippi State. I'm just not liking what I'm seeing out of LSU. I'm not convinced on Mississippi State. But, again, they should have beaten Memphis. They let that one get away. They do have a nice win against what I think is a good NC State team, and they really did punch NC State in the mouth in that game. Mississippi State's known more, regarded more for offense because of Leach's style, but the strength of the team is actually their defense, and it's a pretty good defense. I think they can limit LSU. Close game. Should be one of the games that goes to the wire. I'll take Mississippi State as a small home dog.
All right, leaning towards Mississippi State. Don't forget, guys, $29 will get you 3 of Dave's best bets here this week. And all you got to do is head over to his page at WagerTalk.com. Loves the card this weekend in college football, guys, for $29. Go visit Dave's page now at WagerTalk.com. WagerTalk.com. All right, real quick, just to run them down. Where are the guys leaning? Iowa State laying the 7, says Tony Mejia. Teddy says the team total 16.5. They'll be lucky to get the 7. And Dave likes Mississippi State plus 2.5 in their matchup against LSU. Head over there now, guys. WagerTalk.com. Tony Mejia, Teddy Covers, and of course, Dave Cokin. Hit that bell in the upper right-hand corner, and make sure you come back and join us again tomorrow as we head into the weekend. Get ready for week 4 in the college football season. On behalf of Tony Mejia, Teddy Covers, and Dave Cokin, guys, thanks for stopping by. Best of luck with your plays tonight. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Why pay regular price when you can save money on every purchase with WagerBucks at both WagerTalk and Sports Memo? WagerBucks are now eligible for use on not just daily, 3-day, and 7-day passes, but all long-term and seasonal packages up to 1 full year. There are tons of options available for every budget and size of better, from as low as $90 gets $100, all the way up to $3,500 gets you $5,000. Save every day on every pick you buy with WagerBucks.